So we've got Luke Sandler here with me. Thank you for joining me, Luke.
No.
And you are a London DJ and producer, and you work full-time as an NHS doctor. So two crazy different worlds. Very interesting. I have many questions for you. And you just recently released your 5-track EP. So obviously want to hear all about that. And it was released on Mind of Ours. So you've got to tell us about Mind of Ours as well, because that is your audiovisual collaborative. So tell me how it's been going with the release so far of your EP.
I think it's been going well. I've never really released a full EP before, so I've got nothing to compare it to, but I've had loads of positive feedback from people that I know and people that I don't know, which has been really nice. And a bit of a surprise. I didn't think my music was going to go down quite that well. But it's been awesome. Just hearing how much everyone's been enjoying it. And it's actually had a bit more appeal to people that aren't necessarily into house or techno than I thought it would.
Yeah,
That's been refreshing as well.
that's good to hear, actually. And I think, I mean, I can say from listening to the EP, it's like, I do actually think the tunes are really relatable because you use a lot of samples in there, which we'll get onto, which sort of, you know, they draw you in. And there's, to me anyway, they're quotes that make me think, oh, you know, it kind of gets you thinking. So you also released your single Don't Think just ahead of the EP. And this track absolutely went off. So tell me a bit about this song, the inspiration for it.
So this was a track I first started making when we started running the Mind of Ours events, and I had a very specific moment in a night for a party in mind, and it's actually the moment after the party's peaked and everyone's kind of just completely going with the flow, and you want to bring everyone into this sort of special atmosphere or special place, and it took me quite a while to sort of dial that in. And I played quite a few versions, but then when I hit this version, and I managed luckily to play almost this version out at one of the last events we ran just before lockdown, and the reaction it had on the dance floor, I just knew I'd hit something.
I'd absolutely smashed it. Yeah, no, but seriously, you know, when it was released and I was sort of watching it all going off on socials and everything, people were just nothing but great comments. And I think, you know, you even had plays on BBC, didn't you? You know, big outfits playing your music. So I guess, I mean, which DJs are your inspiration? And I don't know, what's a setting maybe? What inspires you when you are making this music?
So I think for me, the pinnacle of my experience within dance music has always been Warehouse Project in Manchester.
Yeah.
And whenever I'm struggling for inspiration, I always try and think back to the nights that I've been to there and the energy that's been there. And they cover such a wide variety, but what sort of brings it together is just the energy and the atmosphere. And I think my music's probably more varied than some DJs and producers who sort of stick to one lane. And although I cover perhaps a slightly wider sound, I always try and think, would someone be able to get away with playing this in a Warehouse Project set? And if I can get somewhere near that, then I'm usually happy with the outcome.
Yeah, I mean, Warehouse Project is a fantastic event, right? It's like a mini festival indoors, isn't it? Like you say, the atmosphere is crazy. So, you know what? I think that's a really good sort of vision or aim to have. If you can get that sort of sound for that event right, then hitting the nail on the head, really. So, of course, you know, this brings me on to the rest of your EP, because you've done so well with Don't Think, and the rest of the EP has, you know, you've got the 5 tracks on there. Which is your favourite track on there?
So I think at one point, and it's probably a good thing, generally when I'm making them, they've all been my favourite, but once the dust has settled and I can now compare them all, and what I can listen to now, because after you've heard them all 1,000 times, there's some that you can't hear anymore.
Yeah.
My favourite track is actually the last one on the EP, the track called Cara.
Yeah.
I'm really happy with the way the tracks come out sonically, but then also it kind of means a bit more to me. The story behind that track is my sister got pretty sick just at the start of the first lockdown, and no one in my family really knew what to do.
Right.
Uh, at that time, I was focusing on writing lots and lots of music, and I, I, I didn't know how to deal with it. So I was chatting to her a bit about her favorite songs and her favorite um, sort of musical artists and everything. And then I wanted to get a taste of that and try and put it in my music and kind of write her a song, try and cheer her up.
Yeah.
And that song came together really fast, which is generally a sign for me that I've got an idea that's kind of working. I didn't have to force
Yeah.
anything. And then she really loved the song at the time. And then it kind of just sat on my hard drive until it came time to sort of put the EP together and select the tracks.
Yeah.
And I didn't necessarily consider it at first. But at some point, I think one of my friends suggested that I should put that on the EP. And then when it did go into the EP with the other tracks, it just added a whole new flavor,
Yeah.
and kind of acted as a really nice ending point for what could be quite a journey sonically through the whole EP.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've listened to all of the tracks and I have listened to Cara. I'm guessing your sister's name is Cara.
Yeah.
Yes. And actually, your story for this song is really beautiful. And I think it would touch many people's hearts because, you know, lots of people go through a similar thing. And beauty as well. I think when people, especially music lovers, are going through a hard time, you do put your energy into music. And it's just, you know, it's really, really impressive how you've turned this emotional roller coaster into such a brilliant track. And it also leads me on to this, what I wanted to ask you about samples, because I know that in this song, there's a sample that says, "My thoughts are with you." And that
Yeah.
really links to the situation that you're just talking about. So obviously there was meaning behind that. So tell me a bit more about the samples and how you came to choose them.
So it's so I was basically asking my sister who her favorite artists were, like I said, and it's someone disgustingly famous, and it's a song. It's a really famous song, like one that you could play at a party and everybody would scream and
Yeah.
everybody's on the dance floor, from a totally different genre. But I was like, right, how can I? Because it was when she was like, "That's my favorite song," and I was like, right, well, I want to use bits of that, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how I can make that listenable in a sort of house and techno field. So what I did is I got the track, got the instrumental track, and then used the instrumental to cancel out the instrumental from the whole track, and then you're just left with like an artifact of the vocal.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and from that, I pitched it down to a different key, and then started chopping the words out of it,
Right.
um,
Okay.
and then re-sliced all the words to start saying completely different lyrics.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Okay.
in
That's
in a,
cool.
in a completely different key to the songs sung in. But I think one of the reasons that I think everybody likes it so much is I think it's still got a bit of that sound from a
Yeah.
song that's from way back that everybody would love. And I
Yeah.
think subconsciously their brain is like, oh yeah, we really like this
Yeah,
song.
like, yeah, I
Um,
kind of recognize this. And yeah, but that's the best thing, isn't it? When you're on the dance floor and you're hearing a song, you're like, I know this, I know what's coming on. But yeah,
yeah, so
yeah, no, that's really, really cool. So a bit of technical talk there. And it's so interesting to hear how you have put that together. So if you don't mind me asking, how old is your sister?
that's a really good question. I should know the answer to it. I'm going to say she's going to kill me if I get this wrong. Um,
Completely embarrassed you here.
no, I think she's 29, and I'm quite certain of that. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay. So she's probably at this point got quite a refined, you know, music taste, and she knows what she likes. So I'm sure she absolutely loves this track. So yeah, I think it's fantastic what you've done with Cara. And also, I heard you talking because you've done like a set of videos where you explain like the inspiration between each song,
Yeah.
behind each song even. And yeah, you tell me a bit more about the rest of the music then on the EP.
Sure. So, I mean, the first track, Tommy Hilfiger, um, I started writing. I've been in London for a while, but I just moved to East London, and there's kind of a different energy in East London compared to South London.
Yeah,
That got me thinking about all the pirate radio stations that used to be in East London in the 90s, and that's kind of left a bit of um, a cultural impact upon East London and the sort of rave scene in general, because they kind of went hand in hand. And as for my production style, which is I really like to find samples and try and weave them into my tracks. Pirate radio and all the early 90s radio has left some like an absolute goldmine of samples if you know where to look on the internet.
yeah,
Um, so I kind of had all this sort of 90s energy racing around my head, but didn't want to make a 90s track. I kind of wanted to reinterpret it and just make something a bit sort of funky. And so I was collecting all these samples, and it was just an absolute mess. But then I found this one sample of some kid shouting about like Tommy Hilfiger.
yeah.
Um,
It's good
and,
though. It sounds good.
yeah, and it's just I think that was over like a jungle track, and it was way faster. But then when I slowed it down, it kind of had this weird feel to it,
Yeah,
um, and it's just something a bit weird, but it really ear catching and kind of memorable.
yeah,
Um,
for sure.
so I just kind of used that, and then threw all these samples together, and kind of I just kind of got this, I guess, sonic palette
Yeah,
of all
yeah.
the influences of that.
There's one that I really love, and it's in your track "We Go From Here," and
Yeah,
it's a sample that says, "Music." I'm reading it now. I have got
yeah,
it
yeah.
here. Music doesn't happen to the people; people happen to the music, and I just think that is so great. And tell me your view on that quote, because there's quite a lot around that.
Yeah, so I I think that quote, I was kind of thinking about how music and live streams, certainly for the younger generation, have been a massive thing this year. Like there's not much to do, and there's only so much Netflix you can watch, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And the idea that sort of waves of music, whether it be punk or rave or indie or like rock, like happened by accident and then were just put upon a generation of people. It's kind of the other way around to it actually is.
Yeah,
It's a generation of people that make these sounds,
yeah,
um, and that's going to be affected by everything that's happening. And I guess it's exciting for me that an entire generation of musicians, producers have had an entire year just to sit down and no excuses not to be making music. So
yeah,
it's really exciting as to what's going to happen in all genres over the next few years, because everybody's had a kind of when I say a moment, I guess a year to think, right, what's going on with my sound and where's it going to go? Where's it going to go next?
yeah.
So I think we're going to see some really interesting sounds coming from everywhere, as everybody starts releasing all this music they've been writing.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? You are definitely one of them. And it, it leads me nicely onto, the fact that we have just had lockdowns, back to back. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Well, hopefully we're sort of coming out of it. You are also an NHS doctor working on the front line and making all of this music. Has lockdown helped you to focus more because you've not been able to go out? Or has it not? I mean, how has it been for you having this busy schedule as a doctor as well as making all of this music?
So I think the first lockdown helped me to get a lot of music written. Um, and it gave me some time to, like I said, there's no excuses when there's nothing else to do. So I was like, right, I'm just going to sit down and write loads of music. And I was able to sort of develop my sound and get a sort of cohesive collection of tracks together, which will be coming out over the next year or so.
Yeah.
And that was quite exciting. I think the second lockdown for me, because I work in A&E, was much worse.
Mm,
And there was, and I think everybody found the second lockdown way harder. I mean,
yeah.
it was in the winter. For me, work was absolutely mental. Some really bad stuff going on.
Well,
But
actually,
then,
I saw a photo that you had posted, I think in January. That was during that lockdown, I think. But you're in this like full on yellow PPE. Everyone in the background is like all in their PPE. And it's quite a remarkable photo amongst all of these other photos of your music and everything.
yeah, I think my friend just, it was kind of taken as a joke by my friend, because it was just so surreal.
Yeah.
It's the sort of things that happen in movies, and yet you never actually think is going to happen to you. But then when they start getting all the sort of chemicals, giant boiler suits out, and you're like, right, wow.
This is
It's,
real, yeah.
well, I mean, it still hasn't really sunk in everything that was happening.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess I put that up because I just wanted some people to see what was going on.
Well, I guess, well, you know, your music, have you found that making your music whilst having this super stressful job, and obviously the pandemic has made the job even more stressful, has music been a release for you when you come home and you're like, right, get down, make some music, forget about
Yeah,
what's going on at work?
it's been more of a therapy, I think, than a release. I mean, all my friends and everyone close, I'm obsessed with music, and allowing me to sort of throw myself into it and be writing tracks has just given me something to do that's constructive outside of work,
Yeah,
and allow me to sort of carry on functioning as a semi-normal person.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
so yeah,
Completely relate. I mean, you know, I've always been a big believer in, you know, outside of work, have the thing that you do, and you know, you just put yourself into it. I think it helps you have that balance, doesn't it?
absolutely.
Because you know, any job can be stressful. But you talk about, you know, outside of work, being productive, doing cool things. And one of the things I noticed that you had been doing was virtual live streams. And one in particular, you're on a really cool rooftop, it looks like. And you also promoted it as having like super cool visuals from Mind of Ours. So there's a couple of questions I have around that. Where was the location? And also, what are your team like? Because like the content that came out of that was just incredible.
Yeah, so I guess the whole Mind of Ours thing is, um, it started off basically with me and a few friends wanting to run some really good parties, but then we kind of, when we boiled it down to what we wanted to be doing, it's that we wanted to be running parties like nobody had ever been to before.
Yeah.
So we felt we had the music side covered, but we weren't able to deliver sort of on the visual experience. So
Yeah.
luckily, through friends of friends, I got in touch with some crazy talented visual artists who just just take you to another dimension. Some of them do all their sort of visual art on computers and videos. Others are like lighting technicians that can just make any space look like it's sort of from another world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the live stream, we snuck up onto a friend of ours, I guess tower block. We snuck up onto the roof.
Right.
Um, in the middle of lockdown to try and do an outside socially distanced
Yes, of course. Yeah.
set. So we kept it to 6 people. We all had face masks on. And then we kind of just plugged in and just did this 2-hour set at sunrise over the skyline of London.
Yeah. No, honestly, it was like powerful. And I think in the middle of lockdown as well, for people to be able to see this sort of content, it's yeah, it's sort of helpful. It's like and the visuals, like you say, were just fantastic. It kind of takes you away, doesn't it?
Yeah, because there've been so many live streams, and everyone's done it in their own style. But we kind of wanted to give people something to really watch and have an experience
Yeah.
in their homes, rather than just a video of somebody standing by some decks for a few hours.
Yes.
And our visual artists absolutely smashed it out of the park.
Yeah.
Um, and anybody that hasn't seen it should just go and look at the Mind of Ours live stream, because it is wild.
Absolutely. Where can they see that? I mean, we will do a whole sweep up of what your socials are, but where can they see that? Is there a YouTube? There's a YouTube.
Yeah, so yeah, it's online. Mind of Ours live stream one, and it's all there for the taking.
Brilliant. So this brings me on to the future, and are you planning any more live streams? I mean, we're in a different place now, things are opening up, or have you got actual gigs planned in?
So I think we're going to try and get some actual live events lined up, because that's kind of where our event does best. We're just trying to get some venues sorted, and then as soon as we've got a venue sorted, we'll be organising a lineup and getting the word out, and hopefully it will be a night to remember, because all the previous parties have been beyond everybody's expectations, to be fair.
Yeah. And I mean, there's nothing like live music, right? And just being in the venue, having a drink with your mates, having a little dance, and just enjoying the atmosphere. And I think one thing that I really love about your events as well, so Mind of Ours, is that you are linked to a charity. So tell me about how you're linked to the charity and what you do with that.
So myself and Dom, who's the other guy that set up the party, we wanted to run a party, but we weren't like, oh, we want to run a party to try and make loads of money. We wanted to try and do something, I guess, good from it. And we were discussing between ourselves and our friends as to what we thought would be a good reason to do it. And I guess everybody, especially after the last year, has had their own experiences with mental health problems. And if you're lucky enough not to have had your own mental health problem, I'm certain you probably know someone that does. So we settled on the charity of Mind, that we both know does lots of great work. And all the profits from the parties that we run do go to Mind at the end of it. And I guess it's just nice to feel like not only are we doing something that's fun and enjoyable for people, but we're also giving a little something back. And I guess it was before we decided that we'd actually called the event Mind of Ours, more because we wanted just to sum something up that was kind of, it's something that it's everybody's, the event, and people that are coming to it are as much a part of it as we are, to try and curate it. And it's just a nice, happy coincidence that they both fit in.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, it really works very well. And like you say, lockdown has been tough on everybody. And it is fantastic that you guys are giving back in that way. So, it is absolutely brilliant. So the other question that I wanted to ask you is, you've probably played other places. So you've got this huge event, the collaborative of Mind of Ours, but I'm sure you've done gigs yourself. Where's the coolest venue that you have played at?
So, I mean, I've played some cool places in London, played on some really cool rooftops, and I've played in some really sketchy warehouses out in East London, and they're all very cool. My favourite place to play was a venue that I used to play at university, and it was called Gray's Club, and the night was called Swingers.
Okay.
And it was just...
This is in Newcastle,
right? This is in Newcastle. It is just, it's wild. No matter the time of the year or the weather, whether it's snowing, raining, boiling hot weather, the main bit of the club is outside in an alley, and there's disco lights and decorations down sort of like a ceiling of camo netting and everything. And it's sort of 70s themed, and you're supposed to play just like disco and I guess classics for everybody to sing along to. And I would do that, but I'd kind of put a more, I guess, housey techno feel to it. And every so often, and we'd have a great time, and the dance floor would be amazing, and it'd just be going off. Every so often, the promoter, who wasn't that big a fan of like real dance music, would just sort of stick their head round and just sort of glare at me.
Oh,
because it was getting a bit too, I guess, like banging, and everyone was just going.
No, it's this rebel Luke Sandler again. He's come back in and changed the music.
Well, I mean, and then you just sort of fade out of all these bangers, like into like the Bee Gees or something like that, and everybody's. Half the people are screaming because they're loving it, and the other half are like, "What happened to the party?" So
Yeah, a bit of a divide on the dance floor. Now, I thought you were going to say the coolest place that you have ever played would be on one of the wards in the hospital. Have you have you ever played your music to patients, or would that be completely not allowed?
I mean, I'm sure it'd be allowed. I'm not sure I'd ever subject the patients to that. So no, I haven't played on any wards in the hospital.
Oh, that would have been a cool story.
Usually things are a bit too hectic for me to be
Yeah,
doing stuff like that.
for sure.
Yeah, and I think I'm not that person. I think I would just die of embarrassment if I did. If I or someone else had done that, I think I'd have to leave the ward. Yeah,
You'd be fired on the spot.
maybe.
Fair enough. Okay, so I guess let's do a little sweep up of your socials then, so that people know where to find your pages and where they can download your music. Tell us your social media handles.
So it's usually at Luke Sandler Music for all the socials, Instagram, Facebook. I'm on Spotify, Apple Music, everything like that. The Mind of Ours YouTube channel usually has all the official videos for the tracks, and has our live streams, which are probably the thing most worth checking out. And to find out about the events, Mind of Ours has Facebook, Instagram, and that's at We Are Mind of Ours. And I would say Instagram is probably the easiest place and best place to stay up to date. That's the one that I tend to just throw things up on the easiest. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you very much for
Thank you,
joining
Caroline.
me, Luke Sandler, DJ producer and NHS doctor. Who is this?